So we're going to talk about mob programming, but we're going to do it, I talked about mob programming last year because we had just been in it like 6 months. We've been doing it 18 months now, 30 people. And so I really wanted to give you some feedback, but I also spent some time with our friend Alo here, and he introduced me to a book that I'm going to base my talk on today. And so thank you very much, Ellen. It was wonderful, actually mind-blowing. So it really helped me wrap my head around what we were doing and why the heck was this thing working? Because it was kind of like, I think I knew why, but when I read the book, I could put it together, and I want to share that with you. So, all right. So what do you mean I've been doing this wrong, right? I know we all want to improve efficiency, and there's all these questions I was asking, I'm sure you're always asking, right? Of how do I get to the next level? How do I get my team to the next level? And this belief of feedback loops was just, I saw it. I think we were doing it. But when I read this book, and I'm going to try to talk about it today, it just re-emphasized it, and I thought I'd need to bring it to your attention, and I would really, really suggest you read the book as well. So let's get started. What is this mobbing thing again? We'll cover it real quick. I don't want to make this a mobbing lecture, honestly. I want to make this about what's the culture it brings to your organization and why does it stick. It's not a process. It's not Scrum. It's Agile as a set of rules. And it helps you see the forest for the trees. Okay, we already know all about me. So let's jump in. First of all, the mob. Does that look like a mob? I came up with this new icon for a mob. I thought it was kind of cool, right? 3 people, 2 big screens, keyboard, 1 keyboard, big table. That's a mob. So you'll see this later in the presentation. You'll know what it is. That's what our office looks like, 10 of those, okay? So picture that, 10 people or 30 people sitting around in organizations like that. All right, first of all, it's about rules, not process. So when I teach mobbing to my new people or to people who forget, we just go through a set of rules. We don't talk about you have to do this and then that, or there's this meeting and then that meeting. We just say, listen, when we get started, we're going to have all the skills for the task. And we're going to ask ourselves after, if we have a problem, did we have all the skills for the task? The least amount of code to achieve the goal, right? Let's just do what we have for that MVP. Code must go through another person's hands, right? We have to let our thoughts go from the right brain to the left brain to somebody else's left brain to their right brain into their fingers. And as part of that, we get greater quality code. Just switching contexts, right? Starting with tests, we do TDD. My engineers also write their own acceptance tests. I got rid of all my QA team. Better to start something than debating the best way. We just want to get moving and let the debate evolve, but you have to learn to communicate and negotiate. We refactor with every opportunity. Sometimes things will bubble up to me, but most of the time I want the self-organizing teams to figure out when to refactor and when not. We start together without detailed requirements. Doesn't mean we don't need some requirements, but we engage with product at the start of the task to flesh those out. We've talked a lot about requirements from different people today, and so I have a spin on it, right? For sure. I have a mantra of 5 minutes to production. Sometimes that means 24 hours, sometimes it means 3 days. I like to call it 5 minutes to production to reemphasize it. But every day I hope we push to production. And we are a cloud-based infrastructure, so I get it. That makes it easy for me to say that. We retro every day. We like to talk about focusing on the good. Thank you, Woody Zuhl, who I think coined the phrase. And we retro at the end of every feature. So why do these things work without Scrum, without the other, crutches or, things that hold us upright when we think about Agile or Lean? Well, why it works, in my view, is a systems view. And reading the book that Elo told me about, Donella H. Meadows, she was at MIT, wrote this great book called Thinking in Systems, which I'm going to talk about. She has 12 leverage points that she considers the highest impact that you can influence your organization or a system. I'm going to talk about the bottom, or just the top. What is this, 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7. So I'm going to skip a bunch that were kind of less valuable. They are actually valuable. You just need to know where they fit. And I thought this was a place to start. So we're going to talk about reinforcing feedback loops, information flows, right? Who has information, who doesn't? How do you deal with that? What do rules do? Self-organization, goals, paradigms, and transcending paradigms. So this is the talk. Here we go. All right. First of all, reinforcing feedback loops. Got some great examples of this, right? You need to be able to, in our daily retro, which if I retro today and then tomorrow, and the third day, I've got this feedback loop here. I'm going to reinforce it tomorrow. I'm going to reinforce it the third day, on and on and on. I'm identifying good things. I'm identifying bad things. I can suggest, let's do more. I can suggest, let's mitigate something. I can review the impact of doing that. I can rinse and repeat. It's a reinforcing feedback loop, right? It's why retros are so important. It's why we do them at the end of projects in Scrum or any other Agile, right? But if you do them every day, you get to put it on steroids. Because now we get to reinforce behaviors, rules. Are people really bought in to the system? And thereby, we're reinforcing the culture. And that's what I want to get to today. Mob is about culture. It's about setting a set of rules for your organization that everybody can start to reinforce. And if you can do this as one step, man, you can make hay. We've been doing this for 18 months now. And we start focusing on, did you have critical conversations? Were you able to say, hey, you know, why were you on your phone today? It was distracting. Is there something going on at home we need to know about? I'm coaching my team to do that, right? And so tomorrow they can say, hey, I got it all taken care of, don't worry about me. And then if it continues, you know, I'm teaching critical feedback as well as part of their responsibility to the organization to bring everybody up. I had a young lady come to me the other day and she said one of the developers was having a problem communicating, expressing ideas. And I said, well, what did you do about it? Well, I didn't know what to do. I felt wasn't my place. Like, well, tomorrow in the retro, if it's still an issue, can you say something? She's like, okay. You know, I'm coaching her through that. It's her second year out of college. Next day she does it. Guy's like, yeah, I can do better. I struggle with this. Now she's teaching him. She's the coach, right? And they're doing it every day, reinforcing those feedback loops, one-on-one mentoring. Okay, information flows, right? This is, for me, I look at all of our systems, all of our subsystems to the grander system, and I think about the information flows. Who has the information and who doesn't have the information, and is that restricting my team's ability to get things done or my organization's ability to get things done effectively, right? So the one thing I did, and I went kind of radical, right? But mobbing, I think, helps here, is quality is owned by engineering. So if I want high quality, right, this is my system and I've got this much quality, if I've got QA sitting over here and QA knows about the defects and they're talking about the defects and then they're finally feeding that back in, they actually have an information piece that's hard to feed back into engineering. That's just something we've dealt with for our whole lives, right? What does quality know? What does engineering know? Are they talking correctly? I took that out of the equation to make sure engineering owns quality. Engineering has to do the test-driven development. They have to build the acceptance testing. Everybody says that's got to be inefficient. Well, no, the back and forth between QA and engineering, that was inefficient. You want to talk about inefficiencies, right? Finger pointing is super inefficient. Doesn't get anything done. So I've taken that out. I have the luxury to do it. Not everybody does. But I run the show. I got the MongoDB socks on to show it. So hey, I get to make little decisions like this that are pretty cool. And it works for us. But think about information flows. You know, do the right people have the right information at the right time? All right, self-organization, rules, sorry. Rules, you know, I started the whole talk about rules. And rules, if we look at Donnella's chart, you know, we're now into it, the third down, so we're about fourth from the end. Rules are super important because they provide boundaries. Here's my mob living within a set of rules. Yeah, I've got like 13 rules, but nonetheless, I couldn't draw a 13-sided thing that made any sense where I could fit words. So, you know, code must go through another person's hands. Least amount of code to achieve the goal. We're living in a set of rules. They've got a nice defined box. They know what the rules are. We coach on the rules every day. In my one-on-ones, we ask, are there any rules we're missing? Should we get rid of a rule? That's okay. Have we evolved to the state that we don't have to do something now? We're always checking to see if the rules are right. But at the end of the day, the power of being able to impact the system from a systems thinking is being able to define the rules, right? If you can define the rules, you get to make the game. So if you're running a rules-based organization, you have a lot of power. And you're building culture instead of adherence to a process, which I think is a super important differentiator. Self-organization. Well, first of all, the rules can change. A team can come up with, we have rules 1.0, and then we added on some rules and changed the rules, and now we've got a set of rules that are different, right? In self-organization, you have the capacity to evolve, right? That's DNA and organisms and growth. That's just how we all got here. But you must not be afraid as the leader to give up control, right? If you want self-organizing teams, if you want the benefit of your teams to make great decisions, you're gonna have to let them make some bad decisions. And you have to be willing to not step in all the time and design for them as the CTO. You have to get people to design, you have to get people to express their thoughts with product. I can't be the guy at the whiteboard. I will not take that thing unless I'm mentoring and coaching. I will let a junior person design, that is fine. But I want self-organization. My job is to coach self-organization. That's power, right? We think we're working down a list of the most powerful things you can do to build a system, and letting the mobs become self-organized in the rules that work for them and the feedback they give me to then check on those rules with everyone else is extremely powerful. But it also lets me move things around, right? Yes, I got a couple unicorns, got some chickens and cats. I think I have a pig on my team. And sometimes they work like this. Sometimes we break it out. And we have all the right skills. That's self-organization as well, which is one of my rules, is that we have all the right skills to accomplish the goal. So I'm getting a lot better because my job over the last year has been, all right, this is kind of working. What am I going to do when I have 60 developers? What am I going to do when I have 90 developers? How do I scale this out? So it's important that I'm able to dynamically look at the people today in my organization, I mean literally today or yesterday, and say, oh wait, John's out, he's on vacation, I need Vivian over here for the day to make sure that mob is whole because my risk is this, and boom, boom, boom. So I'm moving people around in my mobs now, which before they were in a mob and I was like, oh God, I hope this works. I'm not gonna disrupt that, and I was like tedious to move them. Now I'm moving people around kind of every week, maybe not every day, but it does happen. So, once again, it's self-organization, a little bit of me being the conductor, but teams really raising their hand and saying, I need a UI guy today. Or we need a database team, we need another player that we don't have. Is that okay? Yeah, let me go find that person. Then I'm thinking, where can I get that person? They can live without a person. I don't have everybody today, but it's less risky. And also my juniors and seniors, right? How do I fit my juniors, my seniors together? There's a whole talk on that, by the way. But I digress. Self-organization, extremely powerful. Goals. I didn't realize this was such a big deal. I mean, we think about corporate goals. We think about the in the C-suite, we're setting goals and we all want to live to them. But we want goals to be the things we aspire to achieve. We want our goals to be things that reinforce the behaviors that we're teaching. So many of my aspirations of getting to 100% TDD or no tech debt or a learning culture, these were goals as it turned out, because I want to reinforce them in my one-on-ones every month. I want to make sure everybody realizes this is important to me, it's important to the organization, that we are these things. We're lots of goals, and that's our culture. So we want to reinforce the culture in every conversation I have. So a lot of realization in me in the last year, well, mostly since Alo and I sat in the car for 24 hours together, actually. Here's the side story, right? Alo decided to go motorcycling with me in Utah. So he had to sit for 12 hours in a car with me while we drove our motorcycles in a trailer to Utah, sucker. And then he had to drive 12 hours back with me. So I got to pick his brain about mobbing for 24 hours. It was great. So out of that came a lot of these conversations and discussions. So goals, helped me really understand what I should be talking to over and over with my team, because you can't just say it once. You got to say it over and over and over and make sure they realize these are the things I want them to aspire to. That drives change, right? It indoctrinates. And I call it now inoculation. Because if I have to hire 30 people next year, I want my team inoculated from the new people coming in so that they bring their culture and they all of a sudden form into our culture. Yeah, it's a melting pot. We'll learn from them too, but our imprint's going to be bigger than their imprint. All right, which brings us to the second to last of the high leverage items that Donella talks about, and it's paradigms. And paradigms, in a nutshell, is really belief in a system, right? We believe this system is what it is, right? We believe that now the Earth revolves around the sun, but at one point it wasn't that, right? The sun revolved, or where the Earth was the center of the universe. That was a belief. That was a paradigm. It was wrong, but until you modeled it, you couldn't see it, so you couldn't come up with the right paradigm. So you've got to be able to model before you can move on. You've got to see your system before you can go to a new system. So if this is a nice little systems flow view, I think of our system, or I think of a product, or I think of a software product. All these aspects have to be filled. I've got customer value. I've got feedback loop coming in. I've got decisions. I'm going to have money. I'm going to come in based on all these factors. So I want to model what I know, and then I want to model every subsystem, and I want to see how it works, because these are the paradigms I'm living in as a big picture and as a micro. And from this, right, I can decide if I've got the right feedback loops, if the paradigm I'm living in is correct. And when I look at these paradigms, and I see things that are askew, whether it was waterfall or the way Scrum was being sort of indoctrinated over the years, they're out of whack. And it lets you see that there are better feedback loops that you can put closer to the decision makers to align the decisions, the evidence with the decision with the person who needs to make the change. So that allows us to be agile, right? It allows us the feedback loop to be quicker, to be self-reinforcing, and for my teams to be self-organizing and fly, and give me the self-confidence that I can look the other way. That's what it's all about. So paradigms. We're still on paradigms, right? We have to understand it in order to have new. And then there's the transcending of paradigms, right? This is the final point of Donella's book, which is the highest leverage position, or the highest action you can take is to transcend the paradigm you're in into something new. And I think that's what mobbing was for us, was transcendence. It was transcending lots of little things, each of those smaller subsystems being transcended into something new. And as a whole, that's why it was such a big factor for us as we transcended the old paradigm by being able to describe it. And that's when true disruption is possible. For us, it's about rules, not process. So my last point, bonus slide, is Conway's Law. And somebody pointed this out on the forum the other day, or on Slack, in the forum. And they mentioned Conway's Law. And I thought about it for a while, and I was like, we're microservices. We're in the cloud. Like, what's the best way to organize yourself for the software development of a microservices system in the cloud? It's having self-organizing teams representing those services, representing that type of structure, because Conway's Law, right? Stating that an organization that designs a system will produce a design whose structure is a copy of the organization's communication structure. If we're mobbing in these teams, we're going to be better at designing the software architecture that we're driving for, which is our microservices cloud. So that was pretty cool. So I thought I'd just leave that as kind of a final note. All right? So my big point, though, is are you ready to give up control in order to get to the next level? Because you have to be willing to feel a little nervous every once in a while and say, okay, I think these guys have got it. I can always step in later, but I can't be the person that's stopping something up front. I've got to follow up. I can't, I've got to let them find a way sometimes and make sure that I've taught the rules first and then trust in the fact that I've taught the rules. And if I've done that, I should have confidence. If I've not done that, shame on me. Then my teams are going to fly.